Get 4 minutes to talk about The Outlaw.
The Outlaw, one of the most notorious movies of the 1940s because Howard Hughes did a very public search for to be put it bluntly, a large-breasted woman. And he found Jane Russell, who would have a long career in Hollywood, but he found her age 21, and this was her big break. And he filmed The Outlaw, and I'm sure some of your listeners will know he had a special bra designed to enhance her appearance. Not that she needed it. She refused to wear it because it was so damn uncomfortable. But she didn't need it. And this was notorious. So he made it in 1941, and he hit censorship problem after censorship problem. It finally premiered in 1943, and it was shut. I think it premiered in San Francisco, which we think of as a liberal town now. But it was shut down after a week then. It didn't play again until 1946. And it's all sorts of legends as to what was filmed. There's supposedly a 20-minute sex scene between Jane Russell and Jack Butel, who plays Billy the Kid in the movie. Now, I think by 1940 standards, what they consider the sex scene would impress us as rather tastefully suggestive. But if it was ever made, I mean, you just stack the legends about this movie one on top of the other. I've never seen it. The movie, as it is almost 2 hours long, and there's nothing approaching, what we would call a sex scene in there. There's some suggestive scenes. Some I would say were mildly erotic by our standards, but this was hot stuff. And in the motion of the movie, the posters, he was accentuating you-know-what on Jane Russell. So this made this movie famous and made her a star years before it ever really came out because of the censorship problems.
Was it her first movie?
I think it was her first movie. If not, it was her first movie of any note. She was only 21, and she would not make another movie again for 5 years because both she and the guy that played Billy the Kid, Jack Butel, were put under contract by Howard Hughes. And he had this habit of putting people under contract, paying them their salary every week, and not letting them work. Because once you're under contract, you can only work on what you're assigned to, and he wouldn't give them any assignments. So he basically sat on the shelf for 5 years until their contracts expired. She went on to become a star. She was Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with Marilyn Monroe is probably her most famous film after this one. And he basically had no career. He did some television work in the 1950s, but he disappeared. For all its hoopla, it is a kind of a weird film to watch because Howard Hawks started directing it. So there was a falling out of some type between Howard Hawks and Howard Hughes. It might have been something as simple as a schedule conflict. It might have been too much interference. Again, you can take your pick. Unless you really get into it, you're not going to know. And so Howard Hughes took over the directing of the movie, and the movie seems kind of weird. You wish they'd tighten it up. The scenes seem to go on too long. If you gave me the print, I'd say cut a half hour of that, make the conversations tighter, make the scenes move a bit faster. So it seems to drag for a movie that was supposed to be so erotic. It's really has a lot of stretches in it, but it was a landmark movie at breaking down barriers, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's our time tonight. Enjoy Key Largo.
I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Views and opinions on Visual Radio are mine, not my guests. We do no endorsements here, except for the movie tomorrow night, which is public domain. Reeling is next. Thank you, WinCAM, Sean O'Brien. Thank you. Good night.